Hello there, and welcome back to The Disconnected. Today, I wanted to dive into what is maybe my favorite part of this entire hobby, and that is actually discovering cinema. I love discovering old films, maybe more than anything else in the entire world, and there are lots of things that can affect the way that you view these films. Today, I wanted to share a handful of those, and maybe 5 or 6 films that actually were affected by the way that I viewed these things, and dive deep into explaining how you can get the best out of your viewing experiences. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the way that viewing something in the theater can either enhance or diminish your view of that film. So for me, I have 2 main examples of that exact thing happening. I went and saw Hereditary on opening weekend with possibly the worst crowd ever. I sat in there with a group that was loud, that laughed at the worst parts of Hereditary, that you could tell a lot of it was nervous laughter, but they were overreacting in ways that were just simply uncalled for. And it soured my view of the film. I went home thinking that it was not as effective as I thought it was, and I was lost. I was not understanding how everybody was rating it so highly. I was not understanding what I missed, and not one to, just shrug something away so quickly. I decided I wanted to check it again. So by this point, I've watched Hereditary probably 5 or 6 times, and each time my appreciation has gone up for the film. Toni Collette is maybe the best working actress today, and I think that film exemplifies everything that she could do. But going to a bad experience really soured me on the entire situation. That being said, the opposite can also be true. I had watched this film. This is John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. I'd probably seen this 3 times, all on home video before, probably once on VHS, once on DVD, and once on Blu-ray, and it was good. There were certain things that I appreciated in it, but it was not until I saw this in a theater with a room full of Carpenter fans that I really attached to this film. I grabbed everything that it was trying to give, and I fell in love with this one, and this completely reversed course for me. This was probably a 2.5-star film to all the way up to like a 4.5-star film in my view. And now this is one of my favorites from Carpenter. I love this movie. But it took being around a group of die-hard Carpenter fans that can really appreciate everything he did to really grow that appreciation, but also just seeing it blown up on a big screen and allowing me to marvel at the smallest of details was a huge part of that, and I absolutely loved that experience. Another thing that can change the way that you view films is by absorbing some of the supplements that are on these boutique releases. So many of these releases, they have interviews, they have commentaries, they have documentaries, they have, filming locations, all sorts of things. But my favorite type of extra on all these things is a documentary, either on the making of, a story of a genre, or something that gives a greater context to the creation of this film. And one thing that seems to be boosting in popularity right now is the idea of a booklet coming in all of these releases, whether that be like a thin, say 10 to 20 page booklet just inside the sleeve of the film, or maybe like a 100-page book is found in some of these second sight releases. They give big glimpses into the making of the film, the general historical context, perhaps stories of the director, all kinds of things that can make these just a more well-rounded release for you to really drink in. And there are a few of these that have really heightened my appreciation. The first one last year that really showed me how much that I'd been missing years ago by just setting these books to the side and never really diving into them or pouring through them was Django, the 4K release from Arrow. And honestly, the story of what is in those booklets is not really about the film. It is mostly about the abundance of Django films, where they had all kinds of different films that had that title in there just to sort of cash in on the original film. And then the story of the director, Sergio Corbucci, and it was just nice to get almost this slice of like film school and really feel that as I watched that film and appreciate everything that I was watching more for the historical context. Speaking of historical context, one that I watched recently is Detention from Decanalog, and the booklet in this is all about historical context. It gives an essay into the White Scare, which was the period of time back in Taiwan where they were literally having people being murdered. They lost tens of thousands of individuals, and without that knowledge, this film would have made a lot less sense. I'm very glad that I read the booklet that came with this release, and reading that was good even for the historical context, but it led me to literally go research online to find out more about this so that I could fully appreciate what I was watching and the context for why this film needed to be made. And so my understanding and empathy for this movie, it really grew just upon learning exactly what was trying to be portrayed. One thing that can affect your viewing that we really don't talk about enough is the general mood. So there are certain movies that you just got to be in the right mood to watch and appreciate. And an example of something like that would be how a movie makes you feel. So, if you want to be in a good mood, you're probably not going to pop in Come and See from Criterion. If you are trying to cope with a loss, you're probably not going to put in a movie that is all about death or grief, unless you're really wanting to have that feeling sink in, which makes sense if that's what you want. But likewise, if you're struggling in your relationship and you are on the verge of divorce or something, you don't sit down with your wife and pop in Marriage Story and just hope for a good night. It is something that you have to really feel sometimes, but it goes a lot deeper than just those surface level emotions. There are some nights where you can literally watch a film and be put off by it and feel like it was a poor film simply because you were not in the mood to watch that film. And sometimes that's really hard to get in touch with. For example, a lot of times it can be difficult to sit down with like a cheesy 80s film that isn't, maybe fully PC, since none of them were, and it's not, really top-notch makeup, not really great acting, and you feel like it was awful. But maybe if you were in a more playful mood, you could have understood the context of it better. Maybe you would have related to it better. Maybe it's something that you would have wanted to go back to again. There are all kinds of different ways that you can approach those types of movies. So a movie like that increased because I watched it again with the right mood was the movie Swallow. So originally I'd watched this and I thought it was a beautiful film, but I thought it was overall fairly poor. I thought the ending was bad. I thought that it was rushed. I thought that it didn't, deliver on the emotional level that I really wanted it to. And the biggest thing is I think I was expecting a fully different genre than what it ended up being. So the second time I watched this, instead of preparing for like a horror film, I kind of prepared for like a psychological melodrama. And it worked a lot better the second time for me. And it's not because I was getting more context or expecting properly. It was more because I felt like I was ready to watch a psychological melodrama. For those that don't know, this is a movie about a pregnant woman who has pica, and she has this compulsion to swallow things, hence it being called Swallow. And that is a difficult situation for a lot of people to grasp and hold on to, unless you've dealt with anything like that before, or you have kids, or dealt with the pregnant wife. There's all kinds of things that can lead to better understanding of that, but really just understanding what I was going into the second time I watched this made me feel better about the movie upon rewatch. So speaking of having context for things when you watch films being able to affect what you feel about the movie, I think that there are things that you can understand about the historical aspects or the context of the film, or what led to the making of that film, that can make you appreciate that film on a completely different level. For me, the perfect example of that is the recent A24 release of The Green Knight. So this movie, in my opinion, is incredible. First off, it is shot beautifully. It is a great story. It is just top-notch in every aspect. Dev Patel is amazing. And I personally don't understand how this didn't win a handful of Oscars, let alone it wasn't even nominated for one, I don't think. That being said, this film is based off of a very specific poem, and if you had read the poem, it makes the entire movie that much more enjoyable. Legitimately, it is something where if you haven't read the poem at all, I understand not even understanding the movie to begin with, and why things are happening, why things are so important, why the lore even makes sense. But if you've read the poem, I think that it gives you enough of knowing what to expect, as well as the actual context of what the character is feeling before you go into the movie. And just having that knowledge under your belt can elevate this from a fairly, maybe a mediocre score for a beautiful film movie to a fairly high score, in my opinion. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to bring up here that can affect the way that you view a film and feel about it is probably the most common thing, and that is experiences and age, simply. There are a lot of things that we all face in life at different age levels. There are a lot of things that some of us will never face in life, and just having those experiences will have you appreciate films more. One of my previous jobs, I worked on the railroad, so there are random movies about trains out there that I just simply love because it makes sense. I lived that life. I understand a lot of those things. Like Unstoppable with Chris Pine. It's a fairly by-the-book standard number, but watching that movie for me, it means a lot more because I can picture myself being in a lot of those situations. It comes with a built-in empathy for me. And that can be the case for almost anybody. Everybody that lives a life has a very different, unique set of circumstances and experiences that can prepare you for any certain type of film. Basically, it's more of what you can relate to. So if it's something that you can never relate to, maybe you're just never going to feel a lot about that movie. You're not going to feel that genuine connection. The other aspect is simply aging. Just watching movies at age 15 and again at age 35 can make you feel like you're watching a completely different film. Obviously, there is the whole this movie doesn't hold up like it used to that we all deal with when watching some of these, but also it does work the other way. So there's one movie that obviously I'd been working in, a professional career path for quite some time by the time I had rewatched this, but simply just being older, I think, is what made me appreciate this, and that is the movie Broadcast News. So I'd watched this once years ago. I was probably maybe 17 or 18, and it's an okay movie. It's not something I hated. I could tell that it was well made and well acted and all that, but I didn't connect with any aspect of it. Watching this again at, double that original age, this is a movie that I would perhaps call damn near perfect. The dialogue in this is witty as heck. It comes across as very natural, yet almost impossibly written. It's an odd beast unless you're looking at that from the very specific viewpoint of working in a broadcast news station. And this one just hit me the right way on rewatch. And, sometimes rewatches make that better. Sometimes growing older, sometimes just having those different experiences, they can really make you hone in on and attach yourself to a film like never before. So all those things we talked about, I simply want you to go out there and discover movies for yourself. Take your own unique experiences. Take your age. Take your ability to find historical context. Read and watch the supplements that come with these films, and perhaps watch them again. Find a reason to love these movies. As I always say on this channel, every single film has been somebody's favorite film, and the next time you go to watch a film, you don't know that you might be discovering your new favorite one. All of that said, I just want to be a film fan first and foremost. I appreciate all of the work these boutique labels put into these things, but really it's the movies and the supplements that bring me that emotional resonance that I crave. It's something that I completely am always looking for, that next hit, essentially, of dopamine from really capturing the essence of a film. If you had enjoyed this discussion and you want to continue it, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear some films that maybe you changed your view on later on, whether that's moving up in appreciation or moving down. Let me know about it. I want to hear about it. I love hearing those types of stories because every movie can be a journey for the individual watcher. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you spending some of your time with me on this channel. If you liked the video, please give it a like below. I would love to see that you guys are appreciating conversations like this. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe below. I put out weekly videos all the time. I've got 2 live shows that I put out by myself. I do a podcast with those in case you want to listen later. But also, if you just want to continue this conversation with like-minded individuals in a very free thought arena, in a place that is very positive and uplifting, in a place that is a growing community for film fans alike, maybe consider joining my Patreon. I've got the link below, and we have access to the Discord at the 2 higher levels of the Patreon, and every single day we are discussing these releases, discussing what we've seen, discussing how it affects our lives, discussing our attachments to these films. And some of my newfound closest friends are because of this Discord. So to all of you, I appreciate you being there. To any of you that might come in the near future, we are always welcoming you with open arms, and I can't wait to see this community grow even more. So if you're interested, like I said, link is in the description below. And as I always say on this channel, from one collector to all of you, have a good night.